The wine glass hit the marble floor with a satisfying crash, burgundy liquid spreading like blood across my mother's pristine dining room. "You are officially out of my will, Addison. Completely. Forever." My name is Addison, and I've been waiting 3 years to hear those exact words. The silence that followed was deafening. My 2 older brothers, Rex and Sterling, exchanged those smug looks they'd perfected since childhood. Rex actually started slow clapping, the sound echoing off the crystal chandelier above our Thanksgiving table. "Finally," Sterling muttered, cutting another piece of turkey. "Maybe now we can have family dinners without the smell of grease and shame." I kept my hands folded in my lap, staring at the wine stain spreading across the white marble. 3 years of 12-hour shifts at Murphy's Diner. 3 years of law school. 3 years of watching my family treat me like their personal disappointment. "Sandra, don't you think that's a bit harsh?" my cousin Sloane whispered from across the table. "Harsh?" My mother's voice pitched higher, the way it always did when she was about to deliver one of her legendary verbal beatdowns. "My daughter serves hash browns for a living, Sloane. She's 28 years old and works at a truck stop diner. Do you know what the ladies at the country club say about me?" "That you raised a hard worker?" I suggested quietly. Rex snorted. "Hard worker? Addie, you're a waitress. You wear a stained apron and smell like bacon grease. That's not work, that's embarrassment." "An embarrassment in an apron," my mother agreed, her voice dripping with disgust. "I've given you every opportunity, Addison. Private schools, connections, a trust fund for college. And what did you do?" "You threw it all away to flip pancakes." I could feel Sloane's eyes on me, willing me to defend myself. But I'd learned long ago that defending yourself to Sandra Davidson was like trying to reason with a hurricane. Better to let it blow over. "The will has been updated," my mother continued, pulling out her phone to show Rex and Sterling something on the screen. "Jeffrey handled everything last month. You're both getting equal shares of the estate, plus the business holdings and the house in Martha's Vineyard." "What about the jewellery collection?" Sterling asked, already calculating. "Split between you two, though I suppose Rex's wife might appreciate the pearls more." They talked about dividing up my inheritance like I wasn't sitting right there, like I was already dead. "And Addison gets nothing," Rex confirmed, grinning at me. "Not a penny." "Not a penny," my mother repeated. Maybe that'll motivate her to finally do something with her life instead of wasting it in that disgusting diner. I nodded slowly, like I was absorbing the blow. "I understand." "Good." My mother smoothed her silk blouse and picked up her fresh wine glass. "Now, maybe we can enjoy our meal without discussing your career choices." The conversation moved on to Rex's latest business venture and Sterling's new condo in Boston. I sat there pushing cranberry sauce around my plate, letting them think they'd won. After dinner, I helped clear the table while my brothers lounged in the living room, already planning how to spend their inheritance. My mother retreated to her study to make phone calls, probably to tell her friends about finally cutting off her disappointing daughter. Sloane cornered me in the kitchen while I was loading the dishwasher. "Are you okay?" she whispered. That was brutal, even for Sandra. "I'm fine." "You don't look fine. You look like you're planning something." I smiled at her, the first genuine smile I'd managed all evening. "Want to see something?" I pulled my purse from the counter and unzipped the main compartment. Nestled between my wallet and car keys was a small leather folder. I opened it carefully, revealing the document inside. Sloane's eyes widened as she read the official seal at the top. "Holy shit, Addie! Is that—" "My license to practice law in the state of Massachusetts," I finished quietly. "Passed the bar 3 months ago." "But you work at the diner." "Worked. Past tense. I've been at Ferguson and Lucas for 2 weeks now, junior associate." I closed the folder and slipped it back into my purse. Turns out they handle a lot of estate planning. Sloane stared at me like I'd just told her I was secretly a superhero. You let them humiliate you for 3 years while you were in law school. I let them think they were humiliating me, I corrected. There's a difference. From the living room came the sound of my brother's laughter, probably at another joke about my former career in food service. What are you going to do? Sloane asked. I zipped up my purse and slung it over my shoulder, already heading for the door. Nothing, I said, pausing to look back at the dining room where my family was celebrating my disinheritance. I'm going to do absolutely nothing. But as I walked to my car, I couldn't stop smiling. They had no idea what was coming. The smell of coffee and bacon grease hit me as I pushed through Murphy's diner doors one last time. It was 6 a.m., 3 days after Thanksgiving, and I had some goodbyes to make. Addie! Cameron looked up from the grill, his face breaking into that crooked smile that had gotten me through the worst shifts. Thought you were done with this place. I am. Just wanted to return this. I held up my uniform and apron, freshly laundered. And to thank you. For what? For not treating me like I was crazy when you caught me studying contract law during my breaks. Cameron flipped a pancake and shrugged. My mum went to nursing school while working 3 jobs. I know what determination looks like. That was the thing about Cameron. He saw things other people missed, like the way I'd hidden law textbooks under the register, or how I'd practiced legal arguments while wiping down tables. He never asked questions, just brought me extra coffee during the late shifts when I was cramming for exams. So, what's the real story? He asked, sliding the pancake onto a plate. You've been planning something for months. I can tell, I glanced around the empty diner. You remember what I told you about my family? That they're rich assholes who think you're wasting your life here. That's the simplified version. I sat on one of the counter stools, the same spot where I'd eaten countless free meals during my broke student days. My dad died when I was 14. Heart attack, completely sudden. I'm sorry. He was the only one who ever believed in me. He used to say I had the sharpest mind in the family, that I'd make an incredible lawyer someday. I traced patterns on the counter with my finger. After he died, everything changed. My mom became obsessed with appearances, with what people thought of our family. My brothers learned they could do no wrong. Cameron set a cup of coffee in front of me without being asked. Black, 2 sugars. He'd memorized how I liked it years ago. What happened to your dad's will? That's the million-dollar question, literally. I took a sip of coffee, letting the warmth ground me. He had money, real money, family business, investments, property. But after he died, my mom said there was no will. Everything went to her automatically. You don't believe that. I was 14, not stupid. I remember him talking to lawyers, signing papers. He used to joke about making sure his little lawyer would be taken care of. I laughed bitterly. Guess the joke was on me. The bell above the door chimed and Mrs. Patterson shuffled in for her usual breakfast. Cameron moved to take her order, but I waved him off. Let me, one last time. Morning, Mrs. P. The usual. You know it, honey. 2 eggs over easy, wheat toast, and gossip if you've got it. I poured her coffee and put the order in. Actually, I've got some news. This is my last day here. Finally going back to school. Something like that. When Mrs. Patterson was settled with her breakfast, I returned to my conversation with Cameron. So, what's your plan? He asked quietly. Remember that internship I applied for? Ferguson and Lucas? The law firm downtown. I thought they rejected you. They did, initially. I pulled out my phone and showed him an email from 2 weeks ago. Then they had a change of heart. He read over the message, his eyebrows rising. They want you to work on estate planning. Specifically, they want me to review some files that their previous associate handled. Apparently, there were some Irregularities. What kind of irregularities? The kind that happen when a 70-year-old lawyer gets sloppy and doesn't properly verify documentation. I closed my phone. The kind that might invalidate certain estate transfers if someone knew where to look. Cameron stared at me. Addie, what exactly are you planning? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a new email. The sender name made my heart skip. Victoria Ferguson, managing partner. I opened it, scanning the contents quickly. Then I read it again, slower this time, making sure I wasn't imagining things. Holy shit, I whispered. What? I turned the phone toward him so he could read the subject line. Case reassignment, estate of Sandra Davidson. Your mom's estate? My mom's estate? I felt a grin spreading across my face. They're putting me on my own mother's case. Cameron whistled low. That's either the best coincidence ever, or someone at that firm knows exactly what they're doing. I stood up, suddenly energized. I have to go. Victoria wants to meet with me this morning. Wait! Cameron came around the counter, his expression serious. Are you sure about this, going after your own family? They went after me first, I said, slinging my purse over my shoulder. For 14 years they've treated me like I don't matter. Like I'm not even part of the family. And now? I looked back at the diner one last time, at the place where I'd learned that hard work and determination could take you anywhere you wanted to go. Now they're about to find out just how much I matter. The email notification chimed again as I reached the door. Another message from Victoria Ferguson. Urgent, bring everything you know about the Davidson family financial history. We may have found something significant. I walked out into the cold November morning, leaving behind 3 years of grease stains and condescending remarks. It was time to show my family what their disappointment had been doing with her life. Victoria Ferguson's office looked like something out of a legal drama. Floor-to-ceiling law books, mahogany desk, and windows overlooking downtown Boston. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 40s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Sit, she said, not looking up from a thick file. Tell me about Geoffrey Kent. He's been our family lawyer for 20 years. Why? Victoria finally looked at me, her expression grim. Because his work on your mother's estate is sloppy at best, fraudulent at worst. She opened the file and spread documents across her desk. Bank statements, property transfers, trust fund allocations. My father's name was on half of them. Your mother hired us to update her will last month. Standard procedure would be to review all existing documentation first. Victoria pointed to a property deed dated 6 months after my father's death. This transfer of the Martha's Vineyard house to your mother's sole ownership, it violates the original trust terms. I leaned forward, studying the paperwork. What original trust terms? The ones Geoffrey apparently forgot to mention. She pulled out another document, this one yellowed with age. Your father established an irrevocable trust in 2008. The house, along with 60% of his liquid assets, was supposed to be held in trust for his children until they reached 30. My hands shook as I read the trust document. There it was, in black and white. Provisions for Rex, Sterling and me. Equal shares. But I never received anything. Because your mother and Geoffrey transferred everything out of the trust illegally. They needed all 3 children to sign off on any changes. You were a minor, so your signature wasn't required then, but... Victoria flipped to another page. The trust specifically states that any attempt to disinherit a beneficiary without cause automatically triggers a full audit and potential reversal of all transfers. What constitutes cause? Felony conviction, proven financial irresponsibility, or formal legal declaration of incompetence? Victoria's smile was sharp. Working at a diner doesn't qualify. My phone buzzed. Text from Sloane. "Can you meet for lunch? Found something you need to see." "I have to go," I said, gathering my things. "But Victoria, what does this mean for my mother's new will?" "It means every transfer she's made since your father's death could be invalid. The house, the investments, even the money she's been giving your brothers." Victoria stood, extending her hand. "It means we might be able to put everything back the way your father intended." I met Sloane at a small cafe near her office. She worked in financial planning, which meant she understood money trails better than most people understood their own bank accounts. "I've been digging into your family's finances," she said without preamble, sliding a folder across the table. "Rex's business ventures, they're all funded by transfers from your mother's accounts. Transfers that originated from your father's trust." I opened the folder. Bank statements, wire transfers, loan documents, hundreds of thousands of dollars flowing from trust accounts to Rex's failed restaurant, Sterling's condo down payment, even my mother's country club membership fees. "They've been living off my father's money for 14 years. Your father's money that was supposed to be partially yours." Sloane pointed to a highlighted section. "Look at this. Sterling's been getting a monthly allowance of $3,000 since he was 22. Rex got a lump sum of $200,000 for his restaurant. While I worked double shifts to pay for law school. Gets better, your mother took out a loan against the Martha's Vineyard house last year. Guess what she used as collateral?" I scanned the document she handed me. "The trust assets that she doesn't legally own. Bingo. If the trust gets reinstated, that loan becomes her personal debt, not secured by the property." My phone rang. Victoria Ferguson. "Addison, where are you?" "Having lunch." "Why?" "I need you back here immediately. Jeffrey Kent just called. He wants to meet about your mother's estate." "What did you tell him?" "That I'd send our associate handling the case. He doesn't know it's you yet." Victoria's voice was tight with excitement. "This could be our chance to see how deep this goes." I looked at Sloane, who was still sorting through financial documents. "Can you come with me? I might need a witness." "Are you kidding? I wouldn't miss this." Back at the law firm, Victoria briefed us quickly. "Jeffrey's bringing updated documentation. He claims there were some oversights in the original estate handling that need to be corrected." "He knows we're on to him," I said. "Probably. But he doesn't know how much we know." Victoria handed me a legal pad. "Take notes on everything he says. If he tries to backdate anything or claims documents were lost, we'll have him." The conference room door opened and Jeffrey Kent walked in. He looked older than I remembered, more tired. His eyes widened when he saw me. "Addison, what are you doing here?" "I work here," I said simply. "I'm the associate handling my mother's estate." Jeffrey's face went pale. He set his briefcase down with shaking hands. "I see. Well, this is unexpected." "Isn't it?" Victoria's smile could have cut glass. "Now, you mentioned some oversights that need correcting?" Jeffrey opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of papers. "Yes, well, it seems there were some trust documents that weren't properly dissolved when your father passed. Technical issues, really. Nothing that affects the current will." I picked up the papers he'd brought. They were freshly printed, still warm from the copier. "These are dated 2 weeks ago," I said. "Clerical error. The originals were damaged." Sloane leaned forward. "Damaged how?" "Water damage. Pipe burst in my office." I looked at Victoria, who nodded slightly. "Jeffrey," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart, "I think we need to discuss what really happened to my father's original estate plan." The old lawyer's hands trembled as he reached for his water glass. "I think," he said quietly, "we need to talk about a lot of things." Jeffrey's confession took 3 hours and filled 17 pages of legal notes. "Your mother was desperate," he said. his voice barely above a whisper. "After your father died, she discovered the trust terms. She couldn't touch the majority of his assets without all 3 children's consent. So you helped her steal from her own kids?" Sloane's voice was ice cold. "I helped her navigate the legal complexities." Geoffrey loosened his tie. "She was grieving, overwhelmed. She convinced me that your father never intended for a 14-year-old to have control over family finances." Victoria leaned back in her chair. "What about the original will, the one that disappeared?" Geoffrey's hands shook as he reached into his briefcase again. "It didn't disappear." He pulled out a manila envelope, sealed and yellowed with age. "My father's handwriting was on the front. 'For Addison, open only if necessary.'" My breath caught. "He left me a letter. More than a letter." Geoffrey slid the envelope across the table. "He suspected your mother might try to override his wishes. This was his insurance policy." I stared at the envelope, afraid to touch it. 14 years of wondering what my father really wanted, and the answer was sitting right in front of me. "Open it," Victoria said gently. The seal broke easily, as if it had been waiting all this time. Inside was a letter in my father's familiar handwriting, along with several legal documents. "My dearest Addison," I read aloud, my voice shaking. "If you're reading this, it means your mother has tried to cut you out of your inheritance. I pray I'm wrong, but I know Sandra better than anyone. She values appearances over everything, including her children's well-being." Sloane reached over and squeezed my hand. I continued reading. "I've established a fail-safe mechanism. If anyone attempts to disinherit you unjustly, or if the trust is dissolved without your consent, everything reverts to the original terms I established. Geoffrey has the documentation, though I suspect if you're reading this, he may have been compromised." "Jesus," Geoffrey muttered. "He knew." "There's more." I flipped to the second page. "I've also established a codicil that activates if you pursue legal education. I always believed you'd make an extraordinary lawyer, sweetheart. If you pass the bar, you become the sole executor of my estate, with full authority to restore the original distribution." Victoria sat up straight. "You're a licensed attorney?" "As of 3 months ago." "Then, according to this document, you have full legal authority over your father's estate. Not your mother, you." Geoffrey buried his face in his hands. "Sandra's going to kill me." "She's going to try," I said, still reading. "But according to this, every transfer she's made since Dad died was illegal. The house, the trust funds, everything Rex and Sterling received. It all has to be returned." "What about the new will she just signed?" Sloane asked. Victoria was already pulling up files on her laptop. "If Addison has executor authority, Sandra's new will is meaningless. She can't give away assets she doesn't legally own." My phone buzzed. Text from my mother. "Family meeting tomorrow at 2 p.m. Geoffrey says there are issues with the estate that need immediate attention." I showed the message to Victoria. She knows something's wrong. "Good. Let her sweat." Victoria closed her laptop. "Geoffrey, you're going to that meeting. You're going to tell Sandra exactly what we discussed here." "I can't. She'll what? Fire you? Sue you for malpractice?" Victoria's smile was predatory. "You should have thought about that before you helped her commit fraud." Geoffrey gathered his papers with trembling hands. "What do you want me to tell her?" "The truth," I said, folding my father's letter carefully. "Tell her that her daughter isn't as stupid as she thought." After Geoffrey left, Victoria, Sloane and I spent another 2 hours going through the legal implications. The trust could be fully reinstated. Every illegal transfer could be reversed. My mother would keep the house, but everything else would be redistributed according to my father's original wishes. "What about Rex and Sterling?" Sloane asked. "They've been living off this money for years." They'll have to pay it back, Victoria said, with interest. Rex's restaurant failed 2 years ago. He doesn't have $200,000. Then he'll have to figure it out. I stood up, suddenly exhausted. They made their choices. They chose to take money that wasn't theirs while I worked myself to death paying for school. My phone rang. Cameron. Hey, how did the meeting go? Better than I expected. Much better. Want to grab dinner and tell me about it? I looked at Victoria and Sloane, who were still deep in legal documents. Actually, yes. I need to process all this. Pick you up in an hour. Perfect. I hung up and turned to Victoria. What happens now? Now we prepare for war, she said simply. Your mother isn't going to give up 14 years of financial control without a fight. Let her fight, I said, tucking my father's letter into my purse. She's been underestimating me my whole life. Time to show her what a mistake that was. Sloane grinned. This is going to be epic. No, I corrected, heading for the door. This is going to be justice. As I walked to the elevator, I could hear Victoria on the phone, already calling in favours and preparing legal briefs. Tomorrow's family meeting was going to be very different from what my mother expected. For the first time in 14 years, I was walking into that house with the upper hand, and I intended to use it. The Ferguson and Lucas conference room felt like a courtroom. My mother sat at the head of the polished table in her signature pearls, flanked by Rex and Sterling. They looked like they were attending a board meeting, not a family discussion. Jeffrey sat across from them, sweating despite the air conditioning. Victoria had positioned herself near the door, officially there as firm representation, but really there to watch the show. I walked in 5 minutes late, carrying a leather portfolio and wearing my best suit, the one I'd bought for my bar exam. Sorry I'm late, I said, taking the seat directly across from my mother. Traffic was terrible, Rex snorted. Since when do you own a suit? Since I became a lawyer, I said simply. The silence that followed was deafening. Sterling recovered first. Very funny, Addie. Can we get on with this? I have a meeting at 4. Actually, she's not joking. Jeffrey's voice cracked. Addison passed the Massachusetts bar 3 months ago. She's been working here as an associate. My mother's face went through several colour changes. That's impossible. Is it? I opened my portfolio and pulled out my bar certification. Want to see my license? Rex leaned forward, squinting at the document. This is fake. Call the State Bar Association, Victoria said from her corner. License number is right there. Why didn't you tell us? My mother demanded. When would I have told you? Between the lectures about my life choices or the jokes about my intelligence? I set the certificate aside. Besides, I wanted to surprise you. Well, congratulations, Sterling said sarcastically. Now, can we discuss why Jeffrey called this meeting? Jeffrey cleared his throat. There are some complications with the estate planning. What kind of complications? My mother's voice was sharp. The kind that happen when you illegally dissolve a trust, I said. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. I don't know what you're talking about, my mother said. Really? I pulled out another document, because I have the original trust documentation right here, the one Dad established in 2008, the one you and Jeffrey pretended didn't exist. Rex grabbed the papers from my hands. This is bullshit. Dad left everything to Mom. Dad left 60% of his assets in an irrevocable trust for his children, equal shares. I looked directly at my mother. You've been stealing from your own kids for 14 years. I have not been stealing. $200,000 to Rex for his restaurant. $3,000 a month to Sterling since he was 22. Country club fees, vacation homes, jewellery. I pulled out Sloane's financial analysis. All funded by trust assets that legally belonged to me, Rex, and Sterling. Sterling's face had gone pale. The monthly payments were from Mom's account. Mum's account that was funded by Dad's trust. Money she had no legal right to touch. "This is ridiculous," my mother snapped. "Geoffrey, tell them this is nonsense." Geoffrey wouldn't meet her eyes. "I can't do that, Sandra." "Why not?" "Because it's all true." His voice was barely a whisper. "Your husband suspected you might try something like this. He built in safeguards." I pulled out my father's letter. He left me this. Instructions on what to do if you tried to cut me out of my inheritance. My mother lunged for the letter, but I pulled it back. "Don't touch it," Victoria said sharply. "That's evidence now." "Evidence of what?" Rex demanded. "Fraud, embezzlement, breach of fiduciary duty." Victoria stepped forward. "Your mother and Geoffrey have been systematically looting your father's estate for over a decade." "That's insane," Sterling said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Is it?" "How do you think you afforded that condo in Boston on a bartender's salary?" I looked at Rex. "Or how Rex got $200,000 in startup capital when no bank would loan him money?" "Mum gave us that money," Rex said. "Mum gave you stolen money, money that belonged to all three of us." My mother stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "I will not sit here and be accused of stealing from my own children." "Then where are you going?" I asked. "Because according to the trust documents, I'm now the executor of Dad's estate. Every transfer you made has to be reversed." "You can't do that." "Actually, I can." I pulled out the final document. Dad's codicil specifically states that if any beneficiary becomes a licensed attorney, they assume full executor authority. Congratulations, Mum. You just lost control of your own inheritance. The room erupted. Rex started shouting about lawyers and lawsuits. Sterling demanded to see the documents. My mother stood frozen, staring at me like she'd never seen me before. "This isn't over," she finally said. "You're right," I agreed. "It's not. Because now we have to discuss the new will you signed last month. The one where you tried to disinherit me completely." Geoffrey made a choking sound. "Sandra, you didn't..." "I did exactly what any mother would do with a disappointing child." I smiled, the expression feeling foreign on my face. "Well, that's going to be a problem." "Why?" "Because you can't give away assets you don't own. And as of right now, you don't own anything except the house and whatever's left in your personal checking account." Victoria stepped forward with a thick folder. "We'll need a complete accounting of all transfers made from the trust accounts. Bank statements, receipts, everything." "And if we refuse?" Sterling asked. "Then we'll get a court order," I said. "And trust me, judges don't like it when people steal from orphaned children." My mother's wine glass, when had she gotten wine, slipped from her fingers and shattered on the conference room floor. The sound echoed in the sudden silence, burgundy liquid spreading across the expensive carpet like spilled blood. Just like Thanksgiving dinner 3 days ago. But this time I was the one holding all the cards. 2 weeks later we were back in the same conference room for the official reading of the revised will. This time I sat at the head of the table. My mother arrived exactly on time, wearing a black dress like she was attending a funeral. Maybe she was. Rex and Sterling flanked her, both looking like they hadn't slept in days. Sloane sat beside me, officially there as a financial consultant. Cameron had insisted on coming too, claiming he wanted to see how this ended. Victoria stood near the window, arms crossed, ready for whatever came next. "Before we begin," I said, opening the legal folder in front of me, "does anyone have questions about the process?" "Yeah," Rex said. "I have a question. How is this legal? You can't just take over Mom's will because you went to law school." "I'm not taking over her will. I'm executing Dad's estate according to his original wishes." I pulled out the trust documents. The will Mom signed last month attempted to distribute assets she doesn't legally own. It's void. "That's impossible," Sterling said. She's owned those assets for 14 years. She's had possession of them. That's different from ownership. Victoria stepped forward. The trust was never properly dissolved. Every transfer made from those accounts was illegal. Geoffrey walked in, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 2 weeks. He set his briefcase down and avoided eye contact with everyone. "Geoffrey," my mother said sharply, "please tell them this is all a misunderstanding." "I can't do that, Sandra." He pulled out a thick folder. "The State Bar Association has already opened an investigation into my handling of the estate. My only option is full cooperation." "You bastard," Rex snarled. "You helped her do this, and now you're throwing Mom under the bus?" "I helped your mother commit fraud," Geoffrey said quietly, "and now I'm trying to minimize the damage." I stood up, the revised will in my hands. "Let's get started." "Wait," my mother said. "I want to say something first." "Go ahead." She looked directly at me, her eyes cold. "You think you're so clever, don't you? You think you've won some great victory, but you've destroyed this family. Your father would be ashamed of you." "My father would be ashamed of you," I replied calmly. "He trusted you to take care of his children. Instead, you stole from one to spoil the other two. I gave Rex and Sterling opportunities. You gave them stolen money." I opened the will. "Now, let me read what Dad actually wanted." The room fell silent. The estate of James Davidson, revised and executed according to the original trust terms established in 2008. I looked up at my family. First, the Martha's Vineyard house remains with Sandra Davidson for her lifetime, provided she maintains the property and pays all associated taxes. My mother's shoulders relaxed slightly. "However," I continued, "all other assets are to be distributed as follows. The primary residence in Newton will be sold, with proceeds divided equally among the 3 children." "What?" my mother gasped. "That's my house. That's Dad's house. He bought it before you were married." I kept reading. The investment portfolio, currently valued at approximately $1.2 million, will be divided equally among Rex, Sterling, and Addison. Sterling leaned forward. "So, we each get $400,000. "Not exactly." I flipped to the next page. "All previous distributions from the trust must be repaid before any new distributions are made." Rex's face went white. "Repaid? You received $200,000 for your restaurant. Sterling received approximately $150,000 in monthly payments over 6 years. That money has to be returned to the estate before anyone gets their share." "I don't have $200,000, Rex said. "Then you'll receive $200,000 less than your siblings." I looked at Sterling. "Same for you." "That's not fair," Sterling protested. "We didn't know it was stolen money. Didn't you?" Sloane spoke up for the first time. "You never wondered how your mother could afford to give you $3,000 a month while your sister worked double shifts to pay for school?" You thought you deserved it more than she did," Cameron said quietly, "because she was just the disappointment in the apron." I continued reading. "The vintage jewellery collection currently in Sandra Davidson's possession will be transferred to Sloane Mitchell, as she was the only family member who maintained a relationship with all parties without financial motivation." Sloane's eyes widened. "Addison, I can't—" "Dad's instructions, not mine." I smiled at her. "He always liked you." "What about the business holdings?" my mother asked. "Liquidated." "The proceeds will establish the James Davidson Educational Foundation, providing scholarships for first-generation college students pursuing legal careers." "You're giving away our money to strangers," Rex stood up, his chair falling backward. "I'm giving away Dad's money according to his wishes. He believed in education, in helping people who didn't have advantages." I closed the will. "Unlike some people in this room." My mother was staring at me like I was a stranger. You planned this. All of it. The diner job, law school, working at this firm. You planned to destroy us. I planned to survive you, I corrected. There's a difference. This is insane, Sterling said. We'll contest it. We'll sue. With what money? Victoria asked. Your trust fund accounts have been frozen pending the investigation, and good luck finding a lawyer willing to take a case against their own client's estate. Geoffrey cleared his throat. There's one more thing. Everyone turned to look at him. The house in Newton. It's already been sold. What? My mother shrieked. Addison had the authority as executor. The sale closed yesterday. He pulled out a cheque and slid it across the table to me. Proceeds were $850,000. I looked at the cheque, then at my family's horrified faces. Don't worry, I said, folding the cheque carefully. You'll each get your share. After you pay back what you stole. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of my mother's quiet sobbing. Justice, it turned out, was a beautiful thing. You manipulated this whole thing, my mother screamed, her composure finally cracking completely. This isn't what I signed. Actually, it is exactly what you signed. I pulled out a manila folder from my briefcase. Would you like to see the documents? Rex lunged forward, grabbing for the folder. Show me what she signed. Show me right now. I calmly handed him the papers. Page 3, your mother's signature, witnessed and notarized. Sterling read over Rex's shoulder, his face growing paler by the second. This says she agreed to reinstate the original trust terms. That's impossible, my mother said. I never signed anything like that. October 15th, I said. You came to this office to sign what Geoffrey told you were updated inventory documents for your jewellery collection. The room went dead silent. You remember that day, don't you, Mum? You were so concerned about making sure the insurance values were accurate for your precious pearls. My mother's hand flew to her throat, touching the pearl necklace. She never took off. Geoffrey told you there were some technical legal terms mixed in with the jewellery appraisal, but that you should just sign where he indicated. I opened my laptop and turned the screen toward her. We have it all on video. The security footage from the conference room played on the screen. There was my mother 2 weeks ago, sitting in the same chair she occupied now. Geoffrey was explaining something about jewellery valuations while sliding papers in front of her. I was supervising the meeting, Victoria said. Standard procedure for all estate modifications. Your mother was informed that she was signing legal documents. She chose not to read them thoroughly. You tricked me, my mother whispered. I gave you the same consideration you gave me for 28 years, I replied. I let you assume I was too stupid to matter. Rex was still reading the documents, his hands shaking. This can't be legal. She was coerced. By whom? Victoria asked. Geoffrey explained that she was signing legal documents. She had every opportunity to read them or request her own counsel. But the jewellery inventory was also real, I said. Page 12. Every piece is listed and appraised. You got exactly what you came for, Mom. You just got some additional legal clarity as a bonus. Cameron spoke up from his corner. Sounds like she signed in sound mind with full disclosure. That's what makes it binding, right? Exactly right, Victoria confirmed. My mother turned to Geoffrey, desperation in her voice. You have to fix this. Tell them I didn't understand what I was signing. Geoffrey shook his head slowly. Sandra, I explained 3 times that you were signing legal documents related to your estate. You said, and I quote, I don't care about the legal mumbo-jumbo. Just show me where to sign so I can get back to my lunch plans. That's not, I didn't, it's all on the recording, I said gently. Would you like me to play that part? Sterling slammed his hand on the table. This is fraud. You can't trick someone into signing away their inheritance. She didn't sign away her inheritance, Victoria corrected. She signed a document acknowledging that the assets she thought she owned were actually held in trust for her children. She simply agreed to honour her late husband's wishes. "I'm calling my lawyer," Rex said, pulling out his phone. "With what money?" Sloane asked. "Your accounts are frozen, remember? I'll find someone who works on contingency." "Good luck with that," Victoria said. "Most attorneys won't take a case against an estate they know is legally sound. Bad for business." My mother was staring at the video footage, watching herself sign the documents that had just redistributed her life. "James always said you were the smart one," she said quietly. "He also said I was the kind one, the one who would take care of everyone." I closed my laptop. "But you made sure I learned that kindness is a luxury I couldn't afford. So what happens now?" Sterling asked. "Now you figure out how to pay back the money you took from the trust. Rex, you owe 200,000. Sterling, you owe 150,000. And if we can't pay it back, then you don't get your inheritance until you do." I stood up, gathering my papers. "The trust will hold your portions until the debt is satisfied." "That could take years," Rex said. "Then you better get started." I slung my purse over my shoulder. "I hear Murphy's Diner is hiring. The work is honest and they pay weekly." My mother looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "How can you be so cruel?" "I learned from the best," I said simply. Geoffrey cleared his throat one last time. "There's something else you should know, Sandra." Everyone turned to look at him. "Your husband knew this might happen. He left me specific instructions." Geoffrey pulled out one final envelope. "If you ever tried to disinherit Addison unjustly, I was supposed to give her this." He handed me the envelope, my father's handwriting on the front. "For my brilliant daughter, who never needed my protection but deserved it anyway." I tucked the envelope into my purse without opening it. Some things were meant to be read in private. "This meeting is over," I announced. "Geoffrey will handle the paperwork for the account transfers. Victoria will oversee the foundation establishment. Any questions should be directed through proper legal channels." I walked toward the door, then paused. "Oh, and Mom, you might want to start looking for a smaller place. The property taxes on the Martha's Vineyard house are due next month, and you'll be paying them out of your own pocket now." The door closed behind me with a satisfying click. In the hallway, Cameron caught up with me. "How do you feel?" he asked. I thought about it for a moment. "Like I can finally breathe." The coffee-stained apron hangs in a frame on my office wall now, right next to my law degree and bar certification. Clients always ask about it, and I tell them it reminds me that honest work comes in many forms. "Miss Thompson?" My assistant knocked on the door. "Your 3 o'clock is here." I looked up from the scholarship applications I was reviewing. The James Davidson Educational Foundation had received over 200 applications in its first month. "Send them in." A young woman walked in, maybe 22, wearing a uniform from the same chain restaurant where I'd worked through college. She clutched a folder of papers like her life depended on it. "I'm Maria," she said nervously. "I applied for the scholarship." "Sit down, Maria." "Tell me about yourself." "I'm a single mom, 2 kids. I work nights at the restaurant and take classes during the day." She opened her folder with shaking hands. "I want to be a lawyer, but I can't afford to quit my job to go to law school full-time." "What kind of law interests you?" "Family law. I want to help people like me, people who get taken advantage of because they don't know their rights." I smiled, remembering a similar conversation I'd had with Cameron years ago. "The scholarship covers full tuition plus living expenses. You wouldn't need to work." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious. Your application essay was exceptional." I handed her the acceptance letter I'd prepared that morning. "Congratulations!" She burst into tears, clutching the letter to her chest. After she left, I called Cameron. "Guess what I just did? Changed another life? Gave someone the chance I never had?" I leaned back in my chair, looking out at the Boston skyline. The foundation approved 12 scholarships this quarter. "Your dad would be proud." "I think he is." I'd finally opened his last letter the night after the will reading. It was short, just 2 sentences. "I always knew you'd be the one to set things right. Take care of yourself first, sweetheart. The rest will follow." My phone buzzed with a text from Sloan. "Rex filed for bankruptcy. Sterling moved back in with Sandra. Thought you should know." I wasn't surprised. Rex's debts had caught up with him when the trust payments stopped. Sterling had been living beyond his means for years, sustained only by his monthly allowance. "Any word from your mum?" Cameron asked. "Radio silence, which is fine with me." That wasn't entirely true. Part of me had hoped she might reach out, maybe apologise or at least acknowledge what she'd done. But Sandra Davidson had never apologised for anything in her life. I wasn't about to expect her to start now. "Want to grab dinner?" Cameron asked. "I'm making that pasta thing you like." "Can't tonight. I'm volunteering at Murphy's." "You're what?" I laughed at his surprise. "I go in twice a week to mentor students who are working their way through school. Help them with applications, study techniques, that sort of thing." "Of course you do." Murphy's diner looked exactly the same. Same cracked vinyl booths, same smell of coffee and bacon grease, same exhausted workers pulling double shifts to make ends meet. "Addison," Jenny, the night manager, waved me over. "Your student is in booth 3. A kid named Marcus was hunched over textbooks, highlighter in one hand, coffee cup in the other. Pre-law, working his way through community college before transferring to a 4-year school. "How's the constitutional law reading going?" I asked, sliding into the booth across from him. "My brain hurts," he admitted. "This stuff is so complicated. It's supposed to be. That's what makes it powerful." I pulled out my own copy of the textbook, the same one I'd studied from years ago. "Let's break it down." We spent 2 hours going through case law and legal precedents. Marcus was sharp, asking the right questions, making connections I hadn't expected. "You're going to make a great lawyer," I told him as I packed up my things. "You really think so?" "I know so. You remind me of someone I used to know." "Who?" "A girl who thought she wasn't smart enough for law school. Turns out she was wrong." As I walked to my car, I passed the window where I used to serve coffee to truckers and late-night regulars. A young woman was working that station now, probably around the same age I'd been when I started. She looked tired but determined, the same expression I'd worn for 3 years. My phone rang as I got in the car. Unknown number. "Hello?" "Addison, it's Jeffrey." I hadn't heard from him since the Bar Association hearing. He'd received a formal reprimand, but kept his license. "What do you want, Jeffrey?" "I wanted you to know." "Your mother sold the Martha's Vineyard house." I wasn't surprised. The property taxes alone were more than she could afford on her reduced income. "Where is she now?" "Small apartment in Brookline. She's not doing well, Addison. That's not my problem anymore." "I know. I just thought you should know." After he hung up, I sat in the parking lot for a few minutes, watching the diner through the window. The girl at my old station was helping a customer, smiling despite her obvious exhaustion. I started the car and drove home to Cameron, to the life I'd built from nothing, to the future I'd fought for and won. The apron in my office frame wasn't a symbol of shame anymore. It was a reminder that I'd survived everything they'd thrown at me and come out stronger. And that was enough.